Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. This might sound a bit pathetic, but I get some therapeutic benefit by telling this emotionally tragic story of my life. Please know that all of this narrative is accurate and truthful. My girlfriend, HS college time period, and I had sex quite often, like 4 times a day kind of, often. I am not exaggerating, and this was not an outlier type of event, such as a few days in a row, one summer. This schedule of fornication took place well over 18 months before any change may have been observed. To elaborate, I worked at a hotel in my suburban Boston town. I was a lifeguard for the hotel's pool and health club. I worked 6 a.m., 2 p.m., full-time. Almost no guests came to the pool health club, maybe 5-6 over a 16-hour day it operated. My girlfriend was an administrative assistant at a hospital. She lived at home with her parents, as did I. She'd get ready for work and could dress quite hot if she wanted, and she'd go out of her way to push the limit, as in hemming her leather miniskirt even higher. Not just once, but twice, heels, nails, etc. But she'd get up really early, come to the hotel at like 6:30 a.m. Monday, Friday, and we'd fuck. This involved a lot of quickies. We couldn't get into it really too intensely because this was a public place and risky for me, considering I'd lose my job. We'd go to the bench in the health exercise area, surrounded on 3 sides with wall mirrors, no joke, and doggy it almost every day. I'd also stand behind the front desk and she'd blow me. More than once, a hotel guest would come in for a morning swim and come to the front desk of the pool facility to grab towels, and she was blowing me while I was talking to a guest, or a maintenance worker would stop by, and I'd be talking to them, coming load simultaneously. I know this sounds like movie material, but for real, some days it was hard to keep up. Saturdays was a break because I could sleep in late, and then we only had enough time during the day for 3 times or 2 times. I was in pain sometimes, due to the frequency. I look back on this, and now I think I was completely reckless in this codependent relationship. So that was the morning routine. I'd get off at 2:00 p.m., sometimes earlier if I worked a split shift 6 hours and 6 hours p.m. close. Drive to the hospital where she worked, and we'd fuck in the parking lot. Always a blowjob at lunch, get a sandwich for lunch, and then she'd climb on top. After work she was home early too, because she went into the office early after visiting me at the pool health club. I was out by 2:00 p.m. or noon depending, so I'd go to her house and we'd have a longer fuck, and then we sort of met later that night. She'd drive to my house, and we'd do the Netflix and chill equivalent. But we'd fuck quietly with my mother in the kitchen in the next room. It was exhausting sometimes. We'd go to the basement to play pool. The door to the basement stairs would be left open. But as we silently christened our pool table, we had to roll the balls all around the table to make it appear like we were innocently taking shots. 5 ball off the 9 ball, side pocket. Funny instance where she said, 8 ball cough. Cough. Ah, cough. Side pocket. The second she said the word ball, I'm spewing a fountain of semen into her open mouth as she was sucking me off and stopped to call out the 8 ball. She laughed so hard she peed herself a bit. But that's some of the backstory. She gave me a blowjob at Fenway Park with about 20,000 spectators watching the game. A fan was seated 10 inches or less from her bobbing head on my cock. We even fucked at a traffic light. Yup, a fully operational municipal traffic light. I stopped the truck I was driving at the red light. I told her to take off her underwear, and she said, "Why?" I just said, "Hurry up." So she did, and she's looking at me completely puzzled. The moment they were off, I slammed the truck in park, whipped down my shorts and my cock was out, pumped her like 20 times and came, got back in the driver's seat. The light turned green, and she was like, "Holy shit, what the fuck did you just do?" And we drove away. That's how often we had sex. Here's the kicker. She went camping with her family, and I took care of the 2 family dogs while they were away as a courtesy. No big deal. I had already been suspicious, and, sadly, believing her lies. Once we had fucked, and I could feel something inside her rubbing against my cock. But her facial expressions indicated she was too focused and enjoying the pounding she was getting. I pulled out and started fingering, but eased my further inside her, and I felt a foreign object. She still thought I was inside her for pleasure, but I was playing part-time gynecologist. I slid it out with one finger. Lo and behold, it was a condom. And obviously used. The problem with that was she was on the pill and I had been coming freely in her 6 months into what would be a 4-year relationship. I was relishing the look of horror on her face. She denied it, said it was mine that we used when she was on her period. And while that was true, I used a condom 2 or 3 times in 1 year probably. I personally had never forgotten to take a condom off after sex. I was too afraid semen would flow up her tubes. Moreover, I hadn't worn a condom in 3 months. She denied, and I just went along with it because I was getting laid or blown 4 times per day on average. Jump back to when I was taking care of the family's dogs, which was soon after the mysterious condom incident. I took my suspicions into her room and just looked around. I eased open one of her dresser drawers, moved clothes around, and saw a small folded piece of paper. Yes, I pondered that I was invading her privacy. I paused and thought about that because I considered myself an honest person. But then I said to myself, well, if there is nothing there, then there is nothing I have not seen before, i.e., her clothes. I opened the drawer, and there was nothing to note. I opened the next drawer below, and this was a junk drawer. There was a letter she had written to a classmate from school who lived out of state. Glancing at that, she wrote in the letter she was seeing another guy, and she had broken up with me. News to me. Discovered some evidence that she was smoking pot, as there was a pipe with residue. Of course, I had no idea she was smoking. Then there was a folded up piece of notebook paper. I opened it and saw a list of guys' names, most of whom I knew because it was her fuck list. All the guys she had slept with one form or another. One guy's name she couldn't remember. Her reputation was so well known, except somehow I didn't know. My friends didn't share any info with me. Fortunately, my friends were not on her list. We were at a house party together. Lots of people. At some point, she walked away with her girlfriends. Later, I found out she was getting hit on by a guy already knocked up one gal and got her into the bedroom where they fucked. Later, we walked home to my house. We went to fuck on our couch. I pulled her panties off and got a whiff of something. That sort of smells like cum, I said silently to myself. We fucked. But later, when I found her list, confronted her, I made her tell me the sordid details of each encounter. Of course, she was ashamed and mortified, and she relived that awful feeling of getting caught each story she had to tell me. Why didn't I just walk away? Again, it was a codependent relationship. I had no self-esteem. But I was 21 years old and horny as fuck all the time. It was free sex, the way I looked at it from then going forward. We took turns at being jerks to one another like a power struggle. She slept over a guy's house one night and called me to tell me she just had sex with the guy who was taking a shower when she called. Awful, awful experience for me. This was traumatic for me. Even today, a decade has gone by. Her nymphonas, if that is a word, is plain as day. I say this because when in high school, we used to drive immediately to my aunt's house after school. My aunt was at work. We'd go inside, fool around, BJ, fuck, whatever. Jump ahead 2 years, she fucked this kid from this list a year younger than us. That kid grew up and inherited his grandfather's house and moved into it as an adult. My aunt lived at 11 Main Street, pseudonym. The kid she fucked and is now an adult and lives at 15 Main Street. And she got married a couple of times. And of course, randomly bought a home at 13 Main Street. So every day she wakes up and can look outside to the neighbor at 11 Main Street and she can say, yeah, I fucked in that house. And can also look outside in the other direction to the neighbor's house at 15 Main Street and say, did it there too. Wow, I redefined promiscuity in this town. I no longer have animosity or bitterness toward her. I think if I ran into her in the store somewhere, my response would be like, holy shit, long time no see. I am glad we did not last. I wish I would have acted differently, especially when I chose to be a jerk to her only out of spite for discovering her behavior. But if I had respect for myself, I would have walked away from her without so much of an explanation, and I could have avoided so much more pain. The shame and being mortified upon discovering, I could hardly avoid. I don't forget my past. I just don't dwell on it. Thanks for reading. It was a scene out of a nightmare wrapped in a dream. the beginnings of a love story that twisted into a sordid tale of betrayal and heartbreak. 20-year-old Jake gazed into the mirror with a complexity of emotions swirling inside him. The reflection picturing a youthful man with dark hair unkempt and eyes clouded by disbelief. There were no shadows of turmoil in his life, not back then. Everything revolved around Chloe, his high school sweetheart, and for all intents and purposes, the charismatic center of his universe. But that day, he would learn that even the warmest flames can cast the darkest shadows. Their relationship began simply enough in the bustling halls of their suburban high school. Laughter echoed between stolen kisses after class, whispers shared in the library, and the sweet scent of her floral perfume that lingered long after she had walked by. From the start, Jake was mesmerized by her beauty and spontaneity. Every boy wanted her, but she chose him devoted and true. Yet they both felt like they were living on borrowed time. Chloe elevated the pulse of their relationship into an irresistible rhythm, an obsession that gradually morphed into molten desire. They reveled in heated encounters that stretched the bounds of adventurous youth, ripping through the mundane routines of their teenage lives. 4 times a day became the norm, entwining their lives within layers of passionate secrecy that both thrilled and terrified Jake. The urgency drove them wild, quick rendezvous behind hotel walls, reckless passion at Fenway Park, and daring exploits at red lights in traffic, Jake's heart pumping with every thrill. But amidst those fleeting euphoric moments, cracks began to form, hidden beneath the surface of his naive bliss. Chloe worked at a local hospital, a routine day job that only seemed to enhance her allure. The leather miniskirts, the high heels accentuating her long legs, turning heads as she walked into their apartment. In those early mornings, Jake would wake to the sound of her soft laughter, the sun barely breaking through the horizon, and they would rush to the hotel where he worked as a lifeguard. Every thrill was a double-edged sword. One wrong move could mean the end of it all. But risks and desires overshadowed the dangers. Pleasures masked reality. Excitement dimmed suspicion. Until that fateful week when Chloe went camping with her family, leaving Jake engulfed in an odd silence, the kind that feels heavier than absence itself. For years he had trusted her implicitly, harboring no sense of doubt, no inkling of the betrayal that lay lurking. A day before her return, while mindlessly watching the dogs she had asked him to care for, a sense of paranoia seeped into his mind. 3 full days spent alone allowed his imagination to wander into darker realms. Maybe it was too good to be true. The perfect girlfriend with a flawless facade. The awkward silence of the empty house contrasted with the passionate memories they had created, filling every corner of his world that now felt desolate. And so, driven by a gut feeling, he opened the drawer of her nightstand while looking after the dogs. As mundane as poking around her belongings might seem, it was a horrible breach of trust, a ravenous hunger for confirmation that he needed regardless. He hesitated only for a moment, thoughts flashing through his mind about the stories he had heard from friends at parties, about the enigmatic whispers surrounding Chloe's name. Still, he felt compelled. What he found was a tornado of emotion, a tiny folded letter, echoing betrayal in his mind. He unfolded it, heart racing uncontrollably as he perused its content, breath hitching in his chest. Words poured into him like venom. She wrote about another boy, revealing an affair he had never seen coming. The paper trembled in his hands as anger ignited in him like a raging fire. How could she betray him so? His mind spun with disbelief as reality hit. He was nothing but a pawn in her game, the other boys merely placeholders in a game she played so effortlessly. How could you do this to me? His voice broke as the icy truth crystallized in front of him, filling him with a racing pulse of adrenaline and heartache. Jake put down the letter, returning to the living room, breathing hard, each breath scraping the insides of his lungs like shards of glass. A gut-wrenching pit opened in his stomach as he recalled countless moments sneaking around in their shared whirlwind of lust, while all the while, assuming the other shoe would never drop. Days became torment, the silence between them now heavy with an unspoken truth that tangled their emotions into a knot of frustration. When Chloe returned home, Jake's world tilted on its axis. He was a volcano on the brink of eruption. She walked through the door wearing an innocent smile, oblivious to the storm brewing in his heart. Jake's heart drummed loudly against his chest as he set his plans in motion, determined not to show her the extent of his devastation just yet. He conceived of the tragedy before her, playing the role of a blind man in a dangerous game, feeling her out while swallowing the venom coiling in his gut. Every lie she uttered only served as fuel for the inferno building within him. They met in a flurry of emotion, the atmosphere surrounding them charged with a silent, fraught tension. Days turned into weeks of nested resentment, the kind that nagged and itched until it assaulted the mind with no reprieve. The betrayal had roots that dug deeper than he knew, poisoning his heart slowly. Where there was love, now lay a chasm of betrayal. Each night Jake replayed fleeting memories of laughter shared, whispers of love, exchanged only to be punctuated by images of her complicit smile fueling his rage. How could the woman he adored, the one who had captivated him so completely, transform into someone unrecognizable? Unbeknownst to her, while she thought she held on to him, he was slipping away. Weeks stretched into months rife with tension. Jake found himself oscillating between unrelenting love still pulsating beneath the pain and hatred that brewed like a tempest inside him. He scoured his mind for reassurance, analyzing every rendezvous, every flirtatious glance exchanged with her, and any man that lingered too long in her presence. During those starless nights, rage silhouetted everything she had ever done, making him question every touch, every moan, every night she had spent in his arms. Jake began drawing plans that formed endlessly in the dark recess of his mind. There would be no apologies or apologies offered. Only a reckoning waited. He would see it through to the bitter end. Each moment she was with him, he could feel the rhythm of betrayal thrumming to a tragic beat, a percussive note of revenge settling in like a ghost inside him. And so began the transformation from devastated lover to cold-hearted avenger, while undeniably tied to the one who had shattered him. On the night when all parts of him would come together, when betrayal met consequences, Jake laid in waiting. Every thought drifting through his mind swirled around one singular goal. In the haze of unresolved feelings, there was comfort in knowing he would strike back. As dawn threatened the horizon, he clung to the fractured pieces that had built a sordid mosaic of love, lust, loss, and a dark promise of revenge. As the weeks passed into what felt like an eternity, Jake transformed from the heartbroken lover into a calculating architect of revenge. He could no longer endure the charade of normalcy. Chloe's laughter, which once sent butterflies fluttering through his stomach, now enraged him. Each playful smile masked the truth he would soon tear apart. Each flick of her hair only served as a reminder that every flirtation held potential betrayal. The woman he adored, a vision of love and passion, had committed the ultimate trespass. Jake began plotting her demise socially and emotionally. Instead of allowing heartbreak to dominate him wholly, he dove deeper into the web of voracious obsession, playing carefully with the edifice of Chloe's world. He started reaching out to the names he had seen on her fuck list, pairing their stories with the bits and pieces Chloe let slip during excuses about work nights or girls' weekends. He carefully selected his accomplices, manipulating their anger and feelings toward Chloe's deceit in subtle, calculated moves. It was a rainy night when he first reached out to Nick. Nick had been a frequent visitor on Chloe's list, a guy known for his egregious charm, coupled with an equally reckless nature. Jake convinced him to meet for a drink, framing it as a friendly catch-up. Nick, unaware of the manipulation unfolding, was an easy mark. Over beers, Jake led their conversation toward the inevitable topic, Chloe. "Did she ever tell you about the time she got caught right in my living room?" Jake said halfway through the night, letting the tension hang thick in the air. Nick shrugged. "A lot goes on at these parties, man. But Chloe, she kept it pretty secret with me." Jake feigned a sigh of relief. "Good, you never threw your hat in the ring, did you? Because I'm sure you would have wanted her. She tends to be that captivating. But guess what? She's not done playing games. She's playing field with you and a lot of others. You're just another name to her. Isn't that funny?" Jake's voice dropped to a whisper as he leaned in, eyes fierce and burning with rage. Nick's smirk twisted into a frown as realization dawned. The knowledge that Chloe had managed to enchant multiple men, charming them into her web of lies, fueled Jake's fire. It was a frenetic revelry of satisfying anger. The parts of him that had once pulsed with love were now gallows burning for her reckoning. Days turned to nights as Jake coordinated seamlessly, forging relationships with the others who had been subjugated by Chloe's charisma. He took his revenge blueprint on the road, clues here and flickers of knowledge there, until one night he orchestrated a reunion of sorts, under the guise of a casual party at a bar downtown. He ensnared Nick and a few others, cluelessly convinced that it would be a night of camaraderie, yet they would serve a far different purpose. The haze of alcohol permeated their thoughts, and as they congregated around the bar making each other's acquaintances once more, Jake's strategy began to weave its course. During the frantic chatter between the men, Chloe's name floated and flared like a gust of wind, igniting memories of betrayal far and wide. Jake expertly directed the narrative, spinning stories of their experiences, injecting venom into every memory shared. Every glance thrown across the room seemed to ring with warning bells. It was about to get even darker. As Chloe dashed through the bar's entrance, her familiar laughter echoed through the night. The sound, once music to Jake's ears, now roared like a brazen statement calling her to the gallows of revenge. She walked in, radiating her artistry of confidence, blissfully unaware of the storm about to engulf her. Jake watched as she greeted Nick, her flowing words dancing like a siren's call. Suddenly, a hush filtered through the party as Jake's tension climbed, each pulse of his heart marking the countdown of her impending doom. Taking a deep breath, he stepped toward the stage, where he had arranged for a mic setup, evoking curiosity from the small crowd swelling in the bar. He cleared his throat, silence bathing the room in heavy anticipation. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice steady and sharp. "Tonight we gather to share not only in our mutual appreciation of camaraderie and friendship, but also to shine a light on the dark vices lurking amongst us." Ice began darting from one face to another in confusion, but Jake soldiered through, unyielding. "There was a woman, our dear Chloe," he continued, her shocked visage making his heart swell with satisfaction. "Believe me when I say that you all owe it to yourselves to hear her story. A story not of fairy tale romance but deceit and infidelity." Gasps filled the room, and Chloe's face drained of color as Jake picked apart her veil of deception. He threw names around like weapons, and as each name landed, the air filled with the tension of betrayal unveiled. The drunken amusement had morphed into disbelief and horror. "How many of you have been lied to while entangled in her web? The charm, the lies. It's all a beautiful facade." His voice echoed through the gathering as disbelief clouded their judgment. Laughter and whispers turned into cries of accusations as mutual grievances began to surface. Chloe was cornered. Each accusation morphed into a crescendo of her fault, and among the mixed emotions in the room, Jake was certain she could feel the weight of the injustice and the danger drawing closer. Her smile faded, replaced by a thunderous storm brewed from humiliation. As Jake prepared to deliver his final blow, he caught Chloe's terrified gaze and paused, enjoying every second of the chaos surrounding her. "Admit it, Chloe. You thought you could have it all. Have your lovers, your delusions of grandeur while pretending to be someone who loved, who cared. But the truth is, you didn't love anyone but yourself. And now, you're only left with the mess you've created, your sullied reputation, and the righteous anger of those you toyed with." Jake paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "The puppet master has lost control. Your strings have been cut, and you stand in front of your audience naked, raw, and exposed." As Jake delivered those words, he could almost taste the revenge, the sweet nectar of payback coursing through him. He reveled in the escalating horror on her face, and when he finally concluded, Jake let the silence stretch, each second an indulgence of the moment. Chloe staggered back, staring at the collective faces that had turned against her. She was no longer the queen of her own story, but a broken pawn in a game she never saw coming. "And remember this, Chloe," Jake's voice dropped to a chilling whisper. "You deserve nothing but the emptiness you'll feel now. You spent years playing with love, and now you will experience the desolation of betrayal yourself. How does it feel to know that you lost everything you took for granted? You thought you could redeem yourself, but now you'll see." And with that, Jake turned to leave the stage, a smirk tantalizing his lips, fully relishing his cruel execution of revenge. As he walked away, he put his hand up, acknowledging the stunned silence behind him, feeling a sense of triumph at having cast Chloe from her pedestal into the abyss. Jake left the bar that night, a warrior who had emerged unscathed from the battlefield of love, finally unburdened from the shackles of Chloe's deceit. He had taken everything from her: her dignity, her friends, her thrill of the chase, and as he stepped outside, the chill of the night air met his skin, feeling alive. Each step forward was empowered by the knowledge that he had finally found closure. And while the echoes of laughter filled his ears with a bitter past, the warmth of freedom wrapped around his heart, sealing it all in a definitive reminder that revenge was not a dish served cold. It was an epiphany savored with every intense moment. He had orchestrated with precision. Jake had delivered justice fiercely, and for Chloe it was a final curtain call into darkness from which she would never return. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like.